Good morning. For those of you who I haven't met, my name's Brian DeBar. I've been with the NFM group now for, I want to say, about 6 months. This is the seventh convergence that we've held, the second one that I have facilitated. And thank you for showing up today and being part of the conversation. Um, I think, you know, I would love to go and kind of do the usual introduction and an agenda, but we're shifting gears. Today, we're going to honor something that we started actually a couple of weeks ago, which was a period of reflection after the signing of the Codex, right? We decided that we were going to sort of call a timeout on the projects and think about what some of our learnings had been and have some discussions about where we go from here. And the idea was that we would have those discussions ahead of our summit meeting scheduled for August. Um, Interestingly, doing that took us down a variety of paths of discussion um, that seemed to indicate there were multiple different ways that NFM could proceed as a group. And we weren't all completely in agreement about that. So, um, with that in mind, Francisco and I were talking, and he asked for time this morning to speak to the group to talk about how he feels about what he's heard so far and how we might go forward and how he sees his role vis-a-vis NFM down the road here. So with that in mind, I'm going to give him the time, and then when he's done talking about and sharing the messages he has for us, we can take questions or have further discussion. So that's our agenda for today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Francisco.
Thank you, Brian. And I've made you administrator. So if there is anybody else joining, like feel free to accept or basically reject any note takers or robots or whatever you see fit. Okay.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on that.
Perfect. So, well, thank you everyone for joining. Basically, for those of you that have not had a chance to read the email that I sent yesterday to the community, I'll recap a little bit what I said in the email today. But yeah, basically, like today we have like both happy and difficult news to share. Right, on the one hand, happy because fortunately, we've been able to execute the Network First Codex, where we have been working over the last months. So thank you to everyone that has contributed to putting the codex together, and thank you to everyone that has the signature. And this is very, very important because basically what the codex has done is to create an open foundation from an IP perspective where anybody everywhere can just use the network first methodology, including names, practices, symbols, illustrations. Basically, the codex is a compendium of all what has been generated with regards to the network first methodology over the last 12 months. And that's now available. That's not owned by anybody. And it's open to anybody that wants to use it to iterate, to create a new community, to create a certification, to create a course, to create a technology. So this is a really, really important milestone. And it hasn't been an easy milestone. For those of you that have been involved in the Network First Codex, we've had like very tense conversations, disagreements about where to go. Even once the signatory form was shared, there were people that spent probably 10-15 minutes in completing the signatory form and still maybe they didn't fully understand what was the purpose of the codex. So I had to jump with them on a call or chase them all across the world using like 7 people to, so it has been like really challenging to get all those signatures, but I'm super happy that it was executed. And again, thank you to everyone that has contributed both to put that methodology together and to protect it, right? That's something that is really a very, very rare thing to observe in this type of communities, right? Now, that being said, there are also some difficult news to share today. And basically, like, just to not to go around it, basically a decision, like yesterday I decided to delete the Slack community that we've been working with, the Slack workspace, basically. So I wanted to kind of like guide you through the thought process and, get your thoughts. Today I'm not here to single out any particular member. I'm here to get all the hate from you that you want to throw at me, right? So, don't be safe to do so, even if I have some opinions about things that some members might have done that I don't agree with. I'm here to hear and to listen to how you feel and to basically whatever you want to throw at me. So I want to guide you through the thought process of how I got to that conclusion, right? So um, for those of you that are just joined recently, I want to also do a quick recap because some of you might be thinking, okay, what am I joining? Where, what happened here, right? Some of you might have been part of the community since the very beginning, back in August or July 2025, right? Where basically came together a group of people, create a manifesto, and at that time, we didn't even have a Slack workspace. It was just basically like regular meetings that we were having. We put the manifesto together with a Word document. And then we had the manifesto ratification event in San Francisco and online on August 13, 2025. At that time, basically, one of the first things that we agreed on was on the basic setup of submitting proposals, or basically like voting on what we wanted to do, right? And the first proposal that was submitted, actually, I believe, was a proposal to um, submit proposals and to set up a Slack workspace. And the purpose of the Slack workspace really was to run an experiment on how it was to work in a decentralized manner. So that led to the 30-day impact challenge, where basically we're playing with AI, trying to configure teams based on mapping areas of interest and other stuff. And that experiment was a disaster because, it was not able to configure teams in an effective manner, but it helped us iterate into a model with, that eventually iterated in what is called today the AC framework, which had contributions from different projects. The Poetics team provided alternative nomenclature for many of the phases and matured it. There were projects about workplace design. There were projects about organizational network analysis. There were some projects that were administrative about events and so on. So the community was working for a number of months. And kind of like, after defining after putting together the manifesto, the agreement in the community at that point is like, let's come together and let's try to articulate a methodology that will put the principles that we have articulated in the manifesto in practice, right? And that's really what we did. We basically worked together through different projects. The Network First methodology emerged. We operated with the AC framework. We had network convergences. We had the project catalyst, launching proposals, getting projects ratified. And at some point, we put that together in the codex. Now, there was an inflection point that I think is very important, because today, right before this meeting, I was having a session as part of the Network First pilot that we're running within within my own company, within CTS, right? And it's a project, some of the members are here. We're just creating a manga for, to explain organizational network analysis. And we're having a lot of fun, and we're playing and we're creating. And I was thinking, when was the last time that I had this sensation when I was in the Network First Manifesto? And I was able to trace exactly the point where I stopped having fun with these meetings. And it was the point where we started talking about monetization. In the moment that we had the first meeting with the e-commons, right after every single meeting that we have after that first meeting, we stopped creating in every single project. We went into the Poetics team and we started talking about governance. We went into the ONA topic and we started talking about governance. When every single project started to be about how are we going to manage as a community this tension about monetization. And that is what led, that was a big part of what led to me proposing to create the codex. Because what I thought is like, if we don't create this open foundation to protect the IP, the community is going to implode. People are going to start threatening each other, to say, well, if I don't get money from your project, you're not going to get money from my intellectual property. If I don't get this, you don't get that. And I felt like that's a setup that will never lead us to a point where this methodology can go outside the community. Now, these conversations about governance didn't really stop. The reality is that since we started working on the codex and discussing monetization, there was very little done in every single project. And those of you that have been part of most of the projects we've been around, you know that really we've covered a phase where there was really very little actionability. And part of the problem is that those discussions about governance were eating up much of the time from different projects. And also there were many projects around which led to lower engagement. And basically, at some point, we got the codex executed, and then the discussions about governance really got stronger, right? It started with private groups. At some point, I tried to bring the discussion into the main channel. And at some point, basically, there was kind of like intermediate solution added where we said, well, let's set up a reflection forum where it's open to all the people to join, but maybe not all the people will join. So only people who want to be part of that conversation can join. And it ended up being formed by 15 people, out of which 13 I just plugged myself just to have some conversation at the beginning, to be honest with you. So I don't think really that many people in the community really saw this forum or had a chance to join, apart from the fact that big part of the community actually is not really active on Slack, which is just a challenge that we still have, right? So long story short, basically, we started to have some conversations that I really didn't feel comfortable with. And I found myself in a very awkward position where I had to choose between continue working hard to maintain a Slack community that was taking the movement into a direction that I believe to be the opposite of what the movement was supposed to be, which is basically a hierarchical organization with a board of directors, or hand over the Slack community and somehow still be indirectly legally responsible for whatever that group decides to do with the data and with the Slack community, but at the same time watching the community turn into something that I do not agree with. So I thought to myself, like, what, and this together with basically some rogue behavior that I observe around data privacy, around analysis of metadata and other stuff. But I thought to myself, like, what is the best way to react to this within the framework that we have proposed as a community? And I thought, well, what do people do, given that this was a proposal that I submitted, and in a way I'm the catalyst for the Slack community? What does a catalyst do when it doesn't want to continue a project? It stops the project. In our current system, a catalyst doesn't hand over a project to another person if it's not something that that other person is not really going to carry out the project in a way that doesn't agree with the vision that catalyst had for that project in the first place. So I said, I'm going to delete the Slack workspace. I'm going to send a note to the community, explain the rationale behind it, and let's force that period of reflection really starting from a clean slate. Because for me, like, what was really magical and really unique about this community is the fact that we were able to forget the previous experiences that we had when we come here and have a discussion without any agenda, without any attachment to anything that we own or that we control or that we manage. And that's where the Network First Manifesto emerged from. I don't think that we can have a real conversation, a real period of reflection, while still being in mode of trying to protect something that we have attached, that we're attached to. And I really, and this affects myself as well, right? We are all guilty of becoming attached and, trying to control, trying to manage things that we consider valuable. But I cannot, this is not now, basically, this experience that I have over the last 2 months has not had really a positive impact on my mental health, on my physical health. It's generating a lot of stress, and this is not the reason why I started doing it in the first place. So hopefully this action, I apologize if it has made, basically, if I have created inconveniences, as I thought that I suppose that I have created many inconveniences for people involved, but it's the decision that I thought that aligned the best with the original intent that I have with the community. And yeah, I mean, like, I'll pause it there, but again, I want to appreciate everyone for the contributions that we've done to the community and to the codex. I I'm leaving open the network convergence because I think that we had to have that period of reflection. If people want to come to California to the Network First Summit, I'm more than happy to host the Network First Summit on site or have an online convergence. And yeah, I'll just pause it there. We'd love to hear from the group.
Yeah, I just raised a hand. I don't know if I can speak.
I guess Brian is the moderator. I don't know if Brian is there.
Brian.
Sorry, I had my mute on and I was recognizing you, but you couldn't hear me. Go ahead, Katka.
Yeah, so I just want to give a little bit more of the context. So I was part of all these. So I know Francisco for 16 years, and I know how im impulsive in some decisions can be, and sometimes I don't agree with those decisions. But in this case, I was reflecting the whole night because I knew about it yesterday. And I really think that it was the best decision. And I think it's the best for all the people because the energy wasn't very nice anymore in the group, at least between the people that were discussing about governance. So I think that this is a great reset. I would really look at it from a positive point of view. Like all the people know how to create a group in Slack channel. So this is not, you didn't really delete the community, you just deleted the Slack channel. So we can look at it from that point of view, right? So now I think when the codex was signed, we can all go and spread the words in a different way, create our own groups about Network First, right? So it's something, to some extent, it's providing freedom to each of us to express it in a way that we want to. So I look at it from that perspective. And I think that, yes, it was not easy decision for Francisco because I saw him struggling a lot for a few months and we were discussing a lot. And even at some point I said, so why you just don't start again? Like start with the vision that you had from the very beginning. This is not a corporate world. Nobody is going to be firing you, right? This is something that you did out of your passion. So just did it again and people that resonate will join, and but establish clear mission that you want to do and don't have like questions about, because maybe people thought that it's needed to have governance because maybe you were open to it, right? So that's what I think that the codex was signed and now each of us can try to express Network First in our own way. So yeah, I want to thank to everybody, and I think that Francisco, it was a good decision to just close it and start again.
Thank you, Katerina. I appreciate you sharing your take on this because you have a unique perspective.
Yeah.
I'll open it up. I have some thoughts, but I'll open it up to others who would like to either ask questions or have it say a few words. Either way. So I'll pause for a couple of seconds here and let people think about if they want to say something.
Well, I've been listening for the year and watching because I'm a watcher of culture, and I can't help but wonder how our bigger culture of what's happening in the world has impacted this culture. That's kind of what I'm putting out there as a reflection of like, is this something that is inevitable because of the greater culture, or is it just something that, happened in this culture? And I'm feeling from just watching from the outside that it could be influences of, both. But and if it should restart, I am happy to be there. But I like I said, I wasn't part of everything, but the observation of it was that this is constantly what happens, right? When we're an organization and things happen. And I think that Francisco, your choice and your feeling must have been really, really difficult. And at the same time, I totally honor that you had to stay with your integrity of who you are and what you saw.
I would respond to that, Laura Lynn, with just a short comment that when we look at the world outside around us, a lot of us are here in the US, but a lot of us are not. But for those of us who are, and those are familiar with U.S. affairs of late, um, it is really difficult to set up a new thing, a new mindset, right? We have seen how many years it took the founding fathers in the U.S. to try to craft a constitution and a form of government that was different, that didn't have the kind of governance that kings enjoyed, utilizing. And it's been hanging together pretty well for most of 250 years, but we are now seeing serious cracks in the process. And I think coming into NFM, a lot of us were very inspired and very hopeful and very fired up. But I think that it might have seemed easier to do than it is. So a lot of people have put a lot of time into this, and even with all of that conversation and all of that goodwill, it was hard to come to a consensus. And I think Francisco's told us about some of the what, but I think what we needed to listen to this morning was the why. And I think that an over rotation on what and maybe a loss of focus on and real depth of agreement on why we were doing NFM may have been part of what led to this moment right here. Now, I am challenging myself to practice a degree of radical acceptance, if I can use that term, right? And say, okay, rather than try to figure out like what could have been done differently, to think about maybe what lies ahead and how we go forward. But again, I want to encourage others to speak up too. Thank you, Laura Lynn, for offering those thoughts. I do think that, study of culture, a lot of us have done that, and we are sort of like having this out of body experience in this moment, using those tools to look at what's going on right now and trying to figure out, what to make of all of that. Anyone else? I'm going to refrain from calling on people. I know sometimes that's what facilitators do, but I'm not sure that's appropriate today. So I am going to leave.
I think Brian the Zane had raised the hand earlier.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, Zane, please go ahead.
I feel like there's too much tension to me, so I'm just gonna skip for now.
Oh, you're withdrawing your hand? Okay. Julia, I see your hand raised.
Hi. So I've missed a few weeks. I was out for surgery and I'm back and recovering. And so I'm sort of scratching my head because I read your note this morning, Francisco, and thank you for that. And I was kind of thinking about like, gosh, what happened? What happened while I was out? So I'm trying to catch up, but I also just wanted to say I really appreciate this community and all the great work that's been done over the past year or so. I think this is something really special that this group has created. I don't know the details around what happened, but I appreciate and sort of honor the tough decision you had to make, Francisco. And I really appreciate the chance for this group to come together and just talk about kind of where are we now. I feel like that's healthy in any like sort of team type environment. It's like reflection, reset, like where are we now and what lies ahead. So I appreciate this time together and the work that everyone has done, and hope that we can find creative ways to continue to move forward and bring to life the Network First Manifesto as it's been designed and evolve as needed. But I think there's something beautiful that's been created here. So I'd love to see things move forward, and I'd love to continue to be part of it in a more engaged way now that I'm on the mend.
Well,
Well,
I'll
I
just
think
go ahead, Francisco. I just was going to
just
clarify something, but you might be saying the
just,
same thing.
just want to say, I really appreciate, because, I thought really when I made a decision, I thought that I'm just going to get a lot of hate from everyone, and and probably well deserved, right? And uh, I was really surprised to see I received like 25 messages of email from people supporting the decision and congratulating me for it, right? So I think here there is a wider pattern happening as well, and is that we have a community of 800 people, but there is a very small subset of people that are active on Slack. And sometimes there is confusion about what is the Slack workspace and what is the Network First community. The people that are active on Slack, which are really 10 to 15 people max, are a very important part of the Network First Manifesto community, but are not the Network First Manifesto community. Network First Manifesto community is the whole of the community at the end of the day, right? So I feel like if we have a situation where there are conversations that are happening about creating a board of directors, about setting a hierarchical setup here, that are happening in private conversations, that are happening in small groups of 10 to 15 people, but they're not happening in the main channel on Slack, and they're not happening in the convergences, we have a problem. Because if there is something that somebody really feels strongly about, they should be able to share it with the whole community as well as with their group of friends, right? And again, and I've done this from a place of love for those people, love for the contribution they've done to the community, and really it would break my heart to witness the community that we have created together turning into something that is the opposite of what it was intended. And this is not to say that I do not support the combination of the concept of network first with a hierarchical setup. Network First was never an anarchist or anti-hierarchy movement, but I believe that that's something so fundamentally different than what was proposed initially, that it should be proposed as a separate identity. And when we look at, I wanted to put two quick examples, and I would love to continue hearing from the rest of the team. But when we look at two successful decentralized initiatives, which are the Agile movement and Bitcoin, the two of them have something in common, and is that the initial initiative, which covered kind of like the source code of the initiative, remain unstructured and open and just as it was at the beginning. In the case of Bitcoin, it was, you had the source code of Bitcoin, you can use it as you want, you can take that source code and create Bitcoin Plus and whatever you want to create different, and it creates a fork, and both initiatives live simultaneously. In the case of Agile, the Agile Manifesto community created the Agile Manifesto back in 2001 with 17 people that didn't have any type of hierarchy or structure. And at some point, there was the Scrum Alliance, the Agile Alliance, and those were companies that had board of directors that are making $20 million a year, and that brought the Agile to the mainstream stage. But the initial community of the manifesto was unstructured always. Now, part of this actually was learning from the lessons learned of the Agile Manifesto community, in the regard that because the Agile Manifesto itself was not comprehensive enough for companies to be able to adopt the methodology in a self-service way, that led to some of the later centralized companies that emerged monopolizing the Agile methodology. And that's why many people were frustrated with Agile and were in a situation, well, I want to implement Agile, I want to implement Scrum, but I have to pay for the Scrum certification $2,000 a year or something like that, right? And we say, well, let's mitigate that by actually creating a codex that we offer as a gift to the world that is comprehensive enough for any company to be able to implement this in a self-service manner, instead of having to rely on consulting companies that might offer a different way, might offer some value added, but they do not own the methodology. But in creating that, we also create the perception that there is something already that needs to be managed and controlled and basically managed within the community. And that's what led to this sense of attachment with what is the Network First Manifesto community. Is the Network First Manifesto community the people that are active on Slack? Is the Network First Manifesto community the methodology that needs to be controlled? Or is this basically something that is a gift to the world that anybody can use and anybody can create their own community? So I wanted to pause it there and continue hearing from the team. But if we look really at the best practices from successful decentralized initiatives, it's really key that there is a concept of an unstructured community that gets that keeps being unstructured. Because the moment that is lost, the moment that prima materia, as we talk in alchemy, is lost, then what is just centralized organization. And then like who feels comfortable applying this in their own companies, right? But I will pause it there, but I want to hear from Larry, from Ivana, and from the other people as well.
Yeah, Larry, I think you had your hand up first, and then we'll get to Ivana and Miguel in just a second. Go ahead, Larry.
I believe it was Ivana. I'll let her go first.
Okay, Ivana,
okay.
you have
Sure,
the floor.
thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, for me, it was just more, when I saw the email, was more confusion because, I was under the impression everything was fine and everything was good. So when I saw that, I'm like, what's happening? What happened? But yeah. Yeah, and I was even confused that there was members wanting to form a board of directors and all of that as well, because I just view this as as a community. So I found it odd that there was people that wanted to do things super structured. So for me, it was more just confusion, not like anger or upset or anything like that. It was just more of, I am very confused at what is going on right now. Yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Brian.
Right. I think that's instructive. Francisco's point, I think, about sidebar conversations is actually sort of revealing here itself in terms of the reactions of folks on this call. That it looks like we got another person coming in. In the spirit of good intentions and collaborative freedom, people were having conversations thinking that I think they thought they were helping. I think I thought I was helping. And it felt like it just got away from us. I think Francisco's doing a good job of being very dispassionate about this today and not calling out specific people that said specific things at specific times.
Of course, yeah, that's not
right. And if we were to air all of that, I'm not sure it would be constructive, but I do think people would probably understand his frustration in a different way than they have with what he's given us so far. Is there frustration on the other side for people who maybe thought they were making honest suggestions and hoping for the best? Maybe, probably. But if we had it to do over again, I think Francisco's observation that doing something like that in the main channel might have yielded a different result. I don't know. Yeah. Again, I don't want to try to go back and try to reconstruct where all the forks in the road were. I want to try to just accept that where we're at today and hope that we can find a path forward that preserves the group as well as the integrity of the NFM intent from the very beginning. Right. But thank you, Ivana, for speaking up. Larry, I think you're next. Where are you, Larry?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. I'm here. I went beyond being frustrated to upset and actually outright angry about the developments over the weekend, over the past few days. Francisco, I know this is going to be directed to you, and you can direct some back at me as well. But that anger, that being upset, is because you have taken, over the last few weeks, unilateral decisions because you have your finger on the button. You can shut down Slack. You do own the database of all the contacts of the people of NFM. And I get where you're feeling somewhat threatened by the rise of a conversation that did indeed start with a private conversation among 6 or 7 people that you withdrew from about governance. And it was a germinating kind of a seed of, should we do something different? And then we all had agreed that we were going to enter a period of reflection until the summit in August, not terminating that discussion before that, but having that discussion this whole time, coming up with ideas. And it was just an idea, is there another form of governance to help make some choices and deal with some things that didn't need all 800 people to weigh in on. You know, how might that be managed in an NFM environment? It wasn't challenging you. It wasn't challenging NFM. It was saying, how do we work within that? But we never got to discuss it. You reacted to it as a threat that we were trying to, some of us were trying to establish some form of hierarchy to govern NFM, and nothing could be further from the truth on that. But based on your experience, you reacted and you closed down discussions, you archived projects, and then eventually yesterday just shut down Slack altogether, where we can't even look at the last 6 months that I participated in, our history, our time of forming trusted relationships among some of the people who are the movers and shakers of NFM. And we had developed these relationships, projects, outcomes, documents, spreadsheets, all kinds of materials were in that Slack that all of a sudden disappeared. I posted one final comment, and then all of a sudden Slack went black. And it wasn't until later that I got your email explaining why you were doing that. I get your rationale. You know, I follow you on that thread. However, I'm also upset that you took unilateral decision. You didn't bring that. When it went from the idea of germinated in the small group, and I agree, it can't stay there, and the decision can't be made there, and it went into the large group, it went into the main channel first, and then into the reflection channel, and we were having discussions in there, but that was open to the entire community, and boom, overnight, that went away. So I understand you reacting to it, but I think you need to own your emotion in it about what was driving you to act so quickly without consulting the rest of us, without making a collaborative decision, but making it unilaterally and shutting us out from our history together. That is what got me upset yesterday and this morning, and I'm willing to, discuss that with you one-on-one. But this seemed like the only next forum open. I'm not even sure where we're headed. I was going to do a couple of podcast recordings in the thread of that project, but are we still doing that? Are we not doing that? Are we, because people are commenting on the NFM experience that they had, not necessarily the one that is now. So I'm confused and I'm floating and I'm out here and I'm not sure whether I love the idea. I'm not sure if I want to participate again to have the rug pulled out from under me by a unilateral decision. I'll stop there.
May reply to Larry before continuing to hear from the other members? Again, I made a promise today, and advice from Katarina as well, that I will not single out any particular member. I have a lot that I would like to share, and I will share on one-on-one conversations with each of you individually. But I just want to first tell you that I hear your pain. I understand your pain. I understand your anger. When I made this decision, I understood perfectly the price that I was going to pay for that, and I was willing to pay that price. And this comes from a position of someone that has been working with you on multiple projects across many meetings. I have a profound respect for all the contribution that you made to the community so far. Now, I would like to take your own words and reflect them to the rest of the community, because we have many members today here who are not active members of the community. How does the rest of the community feel about a group of movers and shakers going into a private channel, discussing governance and discussing the idea of setting up a board of directors without engaging the rest of the community? I would like to hear that voice as well, because when we talk about unilateral decisions, there have been several unilateral decisions made in this community. And again, I'm not singling out any particular member. I really appreciate that the people that had these discussions feel now open to discuss those intentions there, because this was, in my opinion, was what this was meant to be from the very beginning. If anybody feels about a certain way, about the way the community should go, we should discuss in the open, in the convergences, and not in private groups, whether it is 5, 10, or 15 people. So I really appreciate that you bring this up, because at least it gives an opportunity to the rest of the people to see what's going on and see, basically, get their opinion instead of in a private group. But I would love to hear from those people as well, if they feel comfortable with a group of, let's call it active people, mover and shakers, or however we want to refer to that, discussing setting up a board and setting up a traditional governance structure in a community that has been completely unstructured until now. Does this sit well with the rest of the community? Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm the only one that was offended by that, or that did not agree with that direction. But at least now we have an opportunity to put it in the open and to discuss it.
I think,
So I think we've got two things going on. We've got people that have hands that have been raised, and we have people who maybe want to respond to your question. With apologies to those that have been waiting, I would like to prioritize the response to Francisco's question first. Katerina, is that where you're going?
I wanted to say the opposite, but it's okay. You are the moderator.
Okay. Well, you started, and I'm not going to pull you back. So why don't you go, and then we'll get to everybody else.
I just wanted, just ignore me. I just wanted Miguel to, because he was raising the hands, but it's fine.
Oh, was that what that was? You were raising a hand for Miguel?
Yeah,
you were going to
yeah,
second his hand? Okay.
No more.
Okay. Miguel, do you want to go next then?
I think there is some reasoning on. I understand that a movement that wants to expand itself, and it starts looking more inward than outwards, it has an issue to be solved. So as an unstructured movement, we started out reaching out to 800 people and having a great energy on the project. And when it starts to move excessively inwards and not having initiative outwards and connecting to other people and to other members of the group, we have the risk of starting discussing the board even up and centralizing things, even if we don't have still all the movement completely structured. I don't know if it makes sense to you. There's a reflection that I made, and regarding the decision, it's kind of radical in my perception that we probably should solve the issue in a more precise way and localized way, because we are throwing. There's an expression in Portuguese that we're throwing the baby with the water of the bath together. So there are a lot of good things that we build that are really great. They're really well structured. I haven't seen in other places and other ways of working. That's really a legacy on what we have built, and it's a pity to have that thrown away. And regarding the direction, I think it would be better to discuss things and answering your question, Francisco. I don't think I never feel comfortable when there's parallel conversations in private channels discussing things that are we're not even mature to discuss this kind of thing that was discussed. I don't know the details, but I wasn't even aware. So we probably should solve the issue in a more localized strategy, and probably being consulted would be great, and probably would give you more ideas. And I understand you taking the decision, and hopefully we can reset this in a way that we're looking more outwards and spreading the word. And it's good to have problems at the start in the beginning, than to have that deception afterwards. So we're human after all. We're used to other cultures and other ways of working. So that's my take on it. I understand your perspective, but I also understand the other side, and hopefully we can move on lighter tracks and because there are a lot of great people here and great connections. So it's a pity to lose that because of one first incident that it's not a major thing at all.
Thank you, Miguel. I'm just going to make one brief comment about that. I think Slack creates some issues that as a tool. And I know in discussing with Francisco a few things over the last couple of days, one of the things we talked about is that it really highlights the need for different kinds of tools to support this kind of environment. Because it does put one person in the position of trying to figure out, how do I protect the data privacy of all of these people in Slack? And it shouldn't really just sit with one person. And I mean, you're in a decentralized organization, but there's like no way to do that. There is not really a decentralized software that works like Slack that's free that we could, I mean, it's just, there's a tools challenge there that's part of why it seems like this is such a broad action. So I know there's also spirit and intent and things like that. And I know Katarina very candidly said that sometimes Francisco seems reactive, right? Like that, okay. But to be fair to Francisco, there is a great way to sort of like halfway shut down Slack, right? So it does kind of affect all of us, and that's just kind of the nature of the tool. I'm trying to figure out who was next. I think it was Sarah.
It could be Ileana, I believe. But
okay, if you want to yield the floor, I'll give her the floor. It's up to you, Sarah.
I'm willing to go. I'm willing to go.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think I just want to echo, because I think there have been sort of several representations of the narrative of a group of us wanting to consolidate or centralize power. And I want to echo what Larry brought into the conversation, which is that because I was involved in the private group chat, and I want to keep my comments here constructive, which also speaks to the purpose sometimes of smaller group conversations, is that people don't want to say everything and air dirty laundry in a way that's unconstructive for the group. So what I want to echo in what Larry said was that I want to represent the narrative that a group of us really wanted to offer to tackle the tool issue that you just raised, Brian, that there was a centralization of power, whether intentional or unintentional, that one person had a finger on the button that could delete the whole community and had the power to make unilateral decisions that affected a really large group. And also, to Francisco's credit, like, of all the people here, he's put in the most time, the most sweat, the biggest investment of energy in creating this community. And there was a sense that it was unsustainable at that pace and at that level of commitment. And a group of us who, like myself, had also invested a pretty massive amount of time and energy in this community wanted to help. So that I just want to say that at least is where I was coming from in some ideas that I put forward. To give you a sense of how whimsical those ideas were, I never used the word board of directors. I was talking about a function that I was calling brain, which would be completely transparent and open to the community, but at least a dedicated container where we could have the conversation about what even is governance in a network first context, that we could open that thread of conversation and make it more transparent. And that kind of, in my eyes, morphed into the reflection channel that we had. And the other container that was very important to me that I've been putting forward for a while is one that I was calling mirror, which would be a container where we have some people who are experts in conflict resolution. I have training in nonviolent communication training and things like that. Larry is an expert facilitator as well. Some of us have that kind of training that we bring to the table. And given some of our experiences that we'd had in the last few months, we really wanted to dedicate some expertise and some time to developing a mechanism to handle conflict and handle tension in a really productive and way. And so those were the two things that were important to me, was to be able to open a thread of conversation about what does decentralized governance even mean, because that's a new experiment for me, coming from mostly hierarchy first world. It's very much what drew me to NFM to begin with, was to have that experiment, and really making an honest and sincere effort to grapple with the paradoxes that were inherent in our community from the beginning, and then also to be able to do that in a way that felt safe, and to bring in expertise to allow those conversations and those conflicts to be had in a way that that would feel safe. So I want to say that while I believe in transparency, bringing every single thing that one experiences and feels to a public forum in front of strangers is not the highest degree of psychological safety. And I think we can all agree with that. So there has to be a balance between those things, transparency and psychological safety. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sarah.
May I quickly reply, Brian, before continuing?
Well, I will give you a rebuttal, Francisco, but let me share this thought. I want to make sure that for the folks that are kind of new to all of what's going on, like that we're talking about here, we've focused in on this whole governance thing because it's kind of there's a recency effect going on, because that is the thing that kind of has been maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, or a tipping point issue for us. But I want to actually take us back to what Francisco said, that like the monetization stuff was the first, link in this chain of things that felt like it was taking us away from the intent of NFM. And we didn't really seem to be able to solve that. We were going around in circles a little bit about it. And then we had some data privacy stuff, and we went around in circles about that a little bit. And then we had some governance stuff, and we were going around in circles about that. So it was this feeling, I think, and Francisco, you can stop me if you think I'm misrepresenting you, but I think there's this feeling that it wasn't just one thing. That's what I heard when you spoke earlier. Now, I'll give you the floor back.
It was a combination of factors, definitely, and I appreciate the people that have been involved in this, like, sharing openly with the community. I don't think really, I think that this is what should have been done from the very beginning. And again, in a collaborative freedom environment, it's perfectly fine to have conversations and express ideas. And it's perfectly fine that when people don't feel comfortable with the ideas being shared, they take the action that they deem appropriate within what it's at their disposal, right? I don't think, specifically with Sarah, I don't think anybody's surprised if I say that Sarah is the person that has been putting, one of the people that have been putting the most work and energy and passion into this, right? From the very beginning. And I think that all of us that were part of the Poetics project, we saw a 180-degree change in the moment that monetization came into the picture. And what I want to say, I know that we have only actually at the top of the hour.
Yes, we are.
Maybe just before Brian put the final statement, I have done this from a position of profound love for all the contribution that all people have put into this. I have a lot of respect for your contribution. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience that this decision might have caused. This is not an end of the community. This is a forced reflection on the community, which I think that is happening today. We have a lot of interesting stuff going on. Miguel is leading a Network First pilot with Odilon, with Marcela, that was here today. The McMaster University, together with the Canadian Medical Association, are requesting funding to Stanford University to fund Network First software. there is a lot of interesting stuff happening. The codex is available now for everyone to access on the website. So what I would suggest is, let's keep the network convergence open monthly. I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with anybody that need to have, right? Thank you to all those people that are even not being active on Slack, promoting these outside, while Miguel, Laureline, lots of people that are doing a lot of contribution without having to show up on Slack and being involved on a daily basis. But, I really look forward to next month Convergence. Either we do it on site in California and online, or we do a normal Convergence online. But let's continue the conversation. Let's discuss what we have to discuss in the open, and let's just identify next steps of a community. But I still believe 100% on the ability for Network First to make an impact in the world, and I will continue working on it just as I've done so far.
Okay, so those who need to drop, feel free to go ahead and drop. No judgment. For those who want to stay, I see some hands still raised. I would like to give them the time. Ileana, I think you were next.
Yes. I believe that the things happens for something. In this moment, I don't know what happened with the entire world. The entire world is so crazy. In this moment, the entire world is so crazy. I'm so appreciate the courage and the passion for Catarina and Francisco. I don't know what happened in the court future, but honestly, in the bottom of my heart, you will always be able to count on me unconditional. This is the only thing that to add to this conversation. It's so difficult to try to understand the government, the people, it's so difficult. I only see a really lovely community, and I believe that we need to continue in the other hands, and it's okay for me.
Thank you, Ileana. Rhiannon, you've been waiting a long time. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it in the chat, but we don't have to reinvent everything. We don't have to invent everything. And I think I've always, I always sort of assumed that we were operating as a teal organization and not as a hierarchical organization. And I think that and there are hundreds of teal organizations that function well, that have good governance, that have good conflict management, and we can turn to those organizations for guidance in how to structure some of this stuff. We don't need to invent all of that. It's already out there, and there's already good guidance for how to do that. And that's exactly the kind of non-centralized organic structure that we have. And so I think that there's good ways for how to set those kinds of structures up that we can turn to that mesh well with how the manifesto works. So I think that there's a lot that we can learn from those organizations that already exist.
Rhiannon, I confess I don't have any idea what a teal organization is.
A teal organization is an organization. Yeah, we can talk more about that, but
maybe if you have a resource, would you like to post it into the chat so people could have something?
But I think it is the kind of organization that we're trying to set up that works organically, that has project teams that come up for specific purposes, that form naturally, that work organically, that then dissolve. That it is the kind of organization that we're trying to structure, and there's hundreds of them all over the world that work well. So I think we have guidance for how to do this. We don't have to invent this. And I think that it will be a lot less painful if we can turn to that for guidance. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Real quick then, Katerina.
I just wanted to mention follow up on what Sarah said. I completely agree, Sarah, what you mentioned about one person having to manage everything. That's too much responsibility. And I think, so after discussing like how Francisco can maybe delegate this or maybe hand over to somebody else, there were so many challenges in this simple task that, in my opinion, just to shutting down everything was the right answer, because it would be so complicated. Even with the codex, I saw so much work put in behind just to sign one document. So how much work would take this, right? And yeah, maybe it's true that we lost some valuable information. I still think that if any presentations were shared, they were most probably stored in the laptop, so it can be recreated. And yeah, so I would really try to look at it from a point of view like, let's start over, and anybody can create now the group chat or Slack channel or anything, right? But I understand that for Francisco, and maybe I would do the same. I would be afraid of doing it because I'm very conflict aversive person, but I think it's very brave just to say, okay, this is enough. Let's just make a decision and start over. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that part as well.
Thank you, Kaka. I'd like to turn it back over to Francisco, just kind of with a question. You had mentioned a couple of things about you'd like to see us continue with convergences at this point, even without the Slack environment, sort of on a day-to-day basis, and continue to hold the meeting that we planned as the summit in this, in August. Anything else in terms of the future that you see as something that you're willing to be involved in, you're fully supportive of, just to give people a sense of like what is the ground we're building from?
First of all, we are 7 minutes above
That's true.
The hour, but the person that I was supposed to have the meeting with joined this meeting and left when he saw all these people. So probably, I'm gonna have to move that meeting, so I don't have any problem to go for half an hour more. But in terms of future involvement, for those of you that have been working with me for some time, you might have learned by now that I can only work on something that I feel that authentic to me. I cannot work as part of a system where I feel constrained, where I feel that it doesn't align with what I want to bring to the world. And the very reason why I launched this initiative in the first place was out of frustration of having to deal with systems where I put good intention into the world to create something that somehow there is governance, there is control, there is hidden agendas, there is monetization, there is prioritization on things that have nothing to do with what I try to put out there. And I'll just continue to be involved in the community to the extent that I feel that this is aligned with my calling. Right now, to be 100% honest with you, my calling sits with continuing exploring with the community in these convergences. What are the next steps? I think that building software that is relevant in a network first environment is a critical thing. I think that many of the challenges that we're having come out of the restrictions that existing software has placed on us inadvertently, which we have benefited a lot from tools like Zoom, like Google Forms, Slack, but they're having also many, many challenges related to that. And part of that is the basically just the restriction of having a single administrator in this tool. Some of the challenges have to do with visibility of notifications, and there are many other challenges, a lot of administrative work that have to be put in the background. So that's what I can say right now. I'm not going to remove the invitations for these convergences. Remember, again, if anybody feels that it's important for them to have a Slack community, I don't own Slack. Go and create a Slack community. Go and create a WhatsApp channel with people you want to interact with. It is collaborative freedom. In the same way that I cannot be forced to manage or delegate a setup that I don't agree with, I cannot force anybody to create or not to create something. If anybody feels that you have a different version of Network First that needs to be materialized in the world, please, you're 100% encouraged from my side to go and do it. Use the same logo, use the same name, use whatever you deem appropriate. Don't depend on me for guidance, for leadership, or for any type of advice on how to do anything. The only thing that I did with this initiative was to put something out there in the world that felt authentic to me. And see if it resonated with people organically. If at any moment the energy that I put out there doesn't resonate with people, and I had this conversation with you, Brian, as well. Like,
Yes.
Never tell me things that you think I want to hear. Never tell me things that you think are going to find the middle ground between what people in a room want. For me, I don't operate from that frequency. I operate from the frequency of putting out something there that feels authentic to me. And if people resonate with that, come with me. If they don't resonate with that, don't come with me. But I'm not a leader. I'm not a manager. I'm not a boss. And this, all what I do in my life, both in my own company, in my own life, and with everything, is just to try to do something that feels authentic to me and enable other people to do something that feels authentic to them. I think part of the challenge here, since we have a little bit more time, a common pattern that I'm hearing is in the process of figuring out the role of everyone in a network first context, which is something that is inherently uncertain. Many people try to look at their previous experiences and their existing skills and try to create a version of network first where they can feel most useful by bringing the skills that they are familiar with. And this creates inherent challenges because many of the practices that exist outside there in the world, whether it is conflict resolution, culture management, knowledge and development, skills mapping, many of these things come from centralized environments that basically have as part of the population managing a certain aspect of a larger group. They are not practices that have an inherent decentralization component on them. I would say the only practice that I have seen out there that really has a network first spirit is organizational network analysis. And even that can be used in a very abrasive manner and very non-valuable manner when handled by the wrong people, right? So, we have to be careful in terms of really, if we're creating a setup where the goal is to enable people to work on something they're passionate about with people, it's not the same as being useful or doing something that I think people want to hear from me or they want to me to do, right? So it takes time because it's a different mentality, honestly. And it's not easy. It's not something that change over a few months or even years, but I think there is a disconnect there between what is the goal of the community and what is expected from people showing up in the community, honestly. And I've never said in any moment that any of the things they have done by people, even if I didn't agree with them, were done in bad faith or were done. I know each of you personally. I know that all of you come here with the best approach and with the love for this initiative. And please be sure that any decision that I might have taken, which you might agree or might not agree with, have not made from a position of bad faith, has made from a position of love for the community and for care for the community to survive long term.
I actually think that's a great place to stop. One of the learnings that we've come out of this with is the dangers of having important conversations with relatively small groups of people. And we're now down to like far less than half of the people that were on the call. And I don't want them to necessarily be excluded from the conversation. But thank you, Francisco. I will share one last thing. Francisco took great pains yesterday to make sure that I came to this conversation as the moderator in no way blindsided by what he was going to say. So I have the advantage of being a bit more prepared to hear this than everybody else, but I just want to thank him for that consideration so that I was able to make the adjustments and have my head in the right space for what we were going to do today. Thank you all for your time. It's been lovely. Working with all of you. And I hope that we will find one or more ways of collaborating together going forward. I know for those that are involved in CTS, we have that whole other world over there in which we are engaged. But thank you again for coming today. And thank you, Francisco, for your candor. All right. Everybody have a good Monday.
Brian, thank you, Francisco.
Bye-bye.